recognize the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. Boebert, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Jason Smith, for holding this hearing. Thank you, Vice Admiral Boxall and Undersecretary McCord for serving our country and taking time today to talk about the Biden administration's defense proposal. The Biden agenda spends big on everything except our national defense. In our ranking member's opening remarks, he mentioned that this administration seeks to defund our military, defund our police, which weakens our safety, our security, and emboldens our enemies. Whether this is at our southern border or to support our men and women in uniform, Biden's budget is light. Under Biden's budget, defense spending is essentially flatlined. Biden's budget would spend more on non-defense discretionary spending than defense discretionary spending. This administration states that climate change is the biggest threat to our national security. I disagree. I would argue Biden's budget is a greater threat to our national security. It distracts from real national security threats like China, Russia, and the southern border being wide open to folks from all over the world pouring into our country illegally. Instead, this budget prioritizes a radical agenda through increasing funding for pandemic preparedness, climate change adaptation, and bringing critical race theory ideologies into our military. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit a report by General Ed Ebhart and Lieutenant General Ed Anderson on the discussion to move U.S. Space Command into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. Admiral, thank you for being here today. Keeping in mind the context that I just laid out, I want to now turn to a study by a retired commander of Air Force Space Command and NORAD Northcom and a retired lieutenant general. This study says that the decision to move the U.S. Space Command from Colorado Springs, Colorado to Huntsville, Alabama, lacked evidence that cost was a priority. It says that leaving the Space Command in Colorado will save taxpayers more than $1.2 billion and get the command to full mission capability 7 years faster. Those numbers don't even include the cost of building survivable communications in Alabama or incentivizing civilians to move there. Given that the Biden administration did not see fit to increase the defense budget at the rate of inflation, why would we waste $1.2 billion on a project that will delay mission capability 7 years in the newest warfighting domain of space?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I have not read that study. I don't know the details of it or how those numbers were calculated. What I do know is that the Air Force is giving due diligence to the question. I don't know where it stands right now. I think it is. I have not been aware of any of those numbers that are used. So until I have that, I wouldn't be able to comment.
Thank you, Admiral. Since the DoD, IG, and GAO are both investigating the decisions to move Space Command, will DoD also conduct a complete reassessment of the cost during this pause for the investigation?
Again, I'm not familiar on the DoD portion of that, but I will say that cost is one aspect of it. There are a lot of things that go into those studies. Cost is certainly very important. Capability is critically important.
Yes, sir.
So all those.
Thank you, Admiral. I don't mean to cut you short. I'm sorry, my time is short. I do appreciate that, and I think the American people would be served best by a complete reassessment that includes costs and mission readiness. Now, with the time that I have left, I do want to turn to this budget's proposed increase for unconscious bias diversity training by $68 million. So there are taxpayer dollars going to this critical race theory-based training. I have major concerns about spending taxpayer dollars to teach an ideology that undermines the principles of the Constitution our service members have taken an oath to defend. I have written the Secretary of the Navy to stop attempts through Task Force 1 Navy to insert this ideology into training regime for sailors in the U.S. Navy. And I also wrote to the Secretary of the Air Force regarding the removal of Lieutenant Colonel Lomer from his command due to the developing politicized environment in the DoD. This indoctrination and mandatory trainings have been taken too far. My time is up.